And I asked her to come on the show and tell her story. And so tonight I would like to introduce our guest, Kay Brown. You're here,
Doris,
to tell your story.
You bet, and I bring a lot of voices that are very much support of you and everything that you're doing. Polygamy is a common thread between the FLDS and the LDS religions.
It is a very common thread, which the LDS, of course, don't want to acknowledge.
Correct.
Acknowledge that. Well, before we get started on the discussion, would you like to give our viewers just a little bit of background and introduce yourself to our viewers?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised mainstream LDS, rich pioneer heritage, actually on my father's side and my mother's side. I've had very many callings over the 50 years that I've been a member of the LDS faith. I was active. Up until 2 years ago, I was a temple recommend holding, Relief Society teaching, 100% Mormon. And if anyone had told me that I would be leaving the LDS faith, I would have said, you are absolutely crazy. But God has had other plans. And I had cause a couple of years ago to research my church history. And everything that I had been taught in the LDS church, I found was not the real history of the church at all, but a completely whitewashed version. We were given the portions that the church wanted us to know. I also discovered that there was quite a metamorphosis of doctrines. They changed quite often. Things that I hadn't realized had been LDS doctrine, actually, that I had studied looking into the history. I found many deceptions of commission and omission. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I can qualify that. Mm-hmm. And those were of the historical facts. And I found the promotion of polygamy, polyandry, and Masonry, and I had never even heard of Masonry being anything to do with the LDS Church. That is not something that was ever in any lesson material.
Mm-hmm. No, and it wouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, people within the Mormon Church system often will automatically assume when someone leaves their church that there has been some horrible sin take place, or maybe your feelings got hurt really bad. And they just can't believe that there might be a reason called bad doctrine that this person has found. So I'd like to ask you this question before we begin our discussion. Was the reason that you left the Mormon Church because of some sin, or was it because someone hurt your feelings at one of the meetings or Sunday schools, or was it bad doctrine that drove you from the church?
Well, it was definitely bad doctrine. Now that I'm a Christian and I have the Holy Spirit, I'm convicted every day of my sins, because we all have sins, big and little.
That's true.
But God doesn't differentiate that way. Sin is sin, and whatever keeps you out of heaven is going to keep you out of heaven.
That's absolutely true. And there's only one thing that will keep us out of heaven, and that's refusing the remedy for our sin.
Exactly.
And that's Jesus Christ.
That's exactly right. The Mormon doctrine is just not the gospel Jesus taught, nor is it the plan of salvation that God had for all of us. It just isn't.
Mm-mm. No, it isn't. And that's unless you're getting in the Bible and studying it. Okay, well, what event started you on your journey out of the Mormon faith system?
Well, a family member announced that he was leaving the LDS faith. And when he had prayed, God answered him and turned his heart to the pure gospel of Jesus Christ in the Bible and to the Christian faith. When I asked him why he would leave the LDS Church, he explained that in his research of the LDS Church history, which is published by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he found confirmation of Joseph Smith practicing polygamy, polyandry, and Masonry, and had come to believe that Joseph Smith was a false prophet. He had found that Joseph Smith had at least 33 wives, documented wives, besides Emma, and that 11 of them were other men's wives. Mm-hmm. He went on to say that this wasn't all. He had found that Freemasonry ceremonies and rituals are what is in the LDS temple. And in my research of Masonry, I discovered that that is absolutely the truth. I was a temple-attending Mormon.
Mm-hmm. And so you recognized that?
I absolutely recognized the verbiage and much of the symbology, practically all of it. There's some variations, and of course that also has morphed over the years.
So if the temple ceremony was given by God, you'd think it would be unique and
it would have stayed.
Copy.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So I asked my family members seriously, are you sure about these things? And he said, yes, I'm sure. He said, it's in your set of church history books by Joseph Smith. Now, this is the history book, the LDS Church history by Joseph Smith, that he had read.
The official version.
Yes, the official version. And he had actually borrowed that from us. We've had that set for probably 30 years, and I'll bet lots of Mormons have that set sitting in their library. And so I told him, well, you know what, I'm going to check it out. But in the back of my mind, I was still 100% Mormon, and I thought, you know, there's just got to be something he's missing.
So you started on your
I
trek.
started on my journey.
Yeah. Okay, well, you took the challenge, you know, and that's good. So many people don't. They won't do that. Well, when you and I first met and talked, you had said that you would like to come on the show, and it intrigued me. I liked your testimony. I liked your email, and I thought that what you had to say would be very impacting, very profound to the people, the audience that we want to reach. And your heart was in the same place as mine, because you expressed the desire that you wanted, had you known when you were a young woman in the Mormon Church, had you known what you know now, things would have been different. And your desire was to let Mormon women now know what you have discovered.
Correct.
And so that's when we decided that this would be a good topic for a show, and I think and I still think it is a good one. We want to provoke them to search for the truth and accept the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And so that's why you are here. Would you tell us your conversion experience in your own words?
You bet. I'd be happy to. Well, and I am very concerned about the women and the men in the LDS Church and the FLDS Church being taught false teachings like polygamy from false prophets, because we also have that in common as those religions go. In Hebrews 1:1 and 2, we read, God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son. Jesus is our last prophet. That's why we are warned about false prophets in the last days. And I just want you to know that I do not have any agenda of personal gain on coming on your show and saying anything, to your viewers. I'm not starting a new religion, and I'm not claiming some new doctrine. All the doctrine we need is in the Bible. I want everyone to have the opportunity to come to know the Jesus Christ of the Bible, who is our holy God. I